team who will be available during this event and provide support as well. So during this event, we have Emelina Zarate, which is our community navigator. We also have Lali Quintero Martinez, community navigator. We have Selena Nadal Martinez Mendez, I'm sorry. We have Luis, who is also our interpreter. All right, and then so now I would like to introduce our panelists who are here with us today. All right, any questions before I move on with our introduction and who we are?
Imelda, could you please go over the interpretation instructions? They're the same ones that you use for Escuela.
Sure, again, let's see. All right, so we're gonna just move on. And, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our panelists. So we have Denisse Madrigal from La Plaza with La Cultura Cura. Denisse came to the United States at a young age, originally from Napa, California. She moved to Sonoma County in 2019, born in Michoacan, Mexico, and then moved to the United States at the age of 8. So Denisse is a first generation Sonoma State University alumni. She's here with us to share a little bit about her experience as a first generation Latina, going to college and moving away from her family home as a first generation college student. We also have Nicky Trasvina, former San Francisco State career counselor. And Nicky is a proud first generation San Franciscan and also proud of her Mexican heritage. Nicky Trasvina comes with a wealth of knowledge from the career and counseling department within San Francisco State. And as well as she has gained degrees and advanced degrees, education, library science, and law. And she's here as our panelist. We have invited Nicky to give us her wealth of knowledge around letting us know a little bit about what would it be like for students when it's their first step into the real world and going to college. And so in her experience, what students have come across facing regarding, being out into this world of education, right? And so that's definitely, thank you so much for being here as well. We also have Blandina Gutierrez and Miguel Herrera. They are our parent panelists. Good morning. So Belinda and Miguel are here to share with us as parents how their children as first generation within the Latinx community, how has that changed for them and seeing their children grow up and then going off to college. So it's amazing to hear what we'll hear what it has been like for them to be able to get that experience. And then additionally, their daughter, Vanessa, what they have shared with us already is that she attended Chico State University, and they have their 2 other children who are either attending a local college or they're in the process of making that decision as well. So again, thank you so much for your support and thank you so much for being here today. All right. And so for today with Embracing Life, the way that this is going to look like, it'll be a question where it's a conversation around what is it like to have first generation students going off to college. And so let's have a conversation. This is an open charla so that all of us can discuss and share to our audience and to the community, about, what it's like, what does that experience look like and how can we frame a space with professionals, but then also with parents that are here today to talk about what that looks like and what that feels specifically in this new generation that, we're having for kids to go off to college. All right, so the first question is, when parents did not want their children to go off to college, how would the conversation go? And that could be a question, for any of our professionals here, or even the parents, how, when parents did not want their children to go off to college, how would the conversation go if you came across any students having that conversation with you?
No.
Esa pregunta,
No.
esa pregunta es para nosotros.
Is that question for us?
Yeah, you can answer. Yeah, definitely. As parents, how did you feel? How did college? And how was that? It was a comfortable conversation. You were worried.
Inicialmente se siente un
Yes,
poco
initially felt worried because we didn't have any information of how all of this works. But along the way, we had conversations with educators or people that are trying to help students in one way or another. One feels more calm because you know that it's a big change for you and for the children. It can be difficult. I think a lot of parents are scared of this, but we also need to think that these are steps that are very necessary for them because they're going to have another lifestyle and a different way of thinking.
I want to share from the student perspective. Please, interpreter, if I'm going too fast, please let me know. But for me, I think my parents' idea of when they moved our family to the US was, I'm the youngest of 6. So I was the only one in my family actually that was able to finish elementary, finish middle school, graduate high school, and go to college. So it was a huge change. And I feel like my family's moral support was always there for me. But when it actually came to having that conversation with my parents about going to school, like my parents for sure definitely were scared, because they were like, oh, it's too much money, like I don't know. And my dad has always worked in the vineyard, so we were low income, and so that was my parents' first question and concern. It's like, how are we going to pay for this, right? And so being first generation, and I was really excited. I was a really good student. And my parents always saw that, I wanted to continue to get educated, and I wanted to take the opportunity that they didn't have. And so, as it was very scary for them, I think like, for my parents, they supported me all the way. They like I said, they obviously didn't know like how we were going to pay for this, but once I started talking to them about like, oh, actually, because we're low income, there's a lot more opportunity for me to go to college, and there's going to be money that um is going to pay for my schooling. They were like, okay. So I feel like, that kind of like, but they're like, how could it be free, if it's so much money? And so I wish that at that time, we're talking about, I graduated high school when in 2009. So, it's been a while. And even then, like, I wish that there was a lot more support for parents to really understand, because my mom was a stay-at-home mom, right? And my dad had to work all the time. And so he would come home tired, you know, and so my mom was the one with me. But in a lot of these meetings that I went to that talked about especially financial aid, they weren't really in Spanish. So I was actually my mom's own interpreter. I had to, and it was very hard for me because I had to like process something that was completely new for me. and try to understand it, and then, translate it to my mom. And so I feel like half of the time, like, I didn't even know, because I was also learning myself. But they were definitely there, and I think my parents were very excited, that I had this opportunity that they didn't have. But it was definitely scary. It was I'm very attached to my mom, so for my mom was even harder, because I was going away, and I had never ever left my house, my parents. So for them, it was like there was a lot of concern about safety, like where was I gonna stay? Like, I always had a curfew, in college I wasn't gonna have a curfew. And so, there was a lot of like concern around there. And I just wish, that, like, now thinking back, I'm like, man, like I wish that there was a lot of support for the student and a lot of information, but I wish that as much information as there was for the student, that there was for the parent as well, because we're learning and we're trying to process, right, on our own. Imagine just, having to translate and having to have our parents understand that. But I don't know how it is now. I'm sure that there's, it's been plus 10 years, like, so I'm sure that there's a lot more support for parents, but at least that was my experience.
Yeah, go ahead, Nicky.
Oh, thank you, Imelda. And I was an academic and career counselor at San Francisco State and the community colleges for many years. And I really want to salute the Herrera family and Denisse and your parents for showing that love and support for your student. And as an academic advisor, that's half the battle, is giving the students the moral support from home. We can, and I'll talk later about resources. There's a lot of resources, and Denisse, it has improved since you've been in school, but having that support remotely from home, from the parents and the siblings and your tias and your abuelas and everybody is vital for the success of the student. I saw it in Imelda. Imelda had a lot of support from her entire family. And I agree that if you are the first in your family of your siblings and your cousins to go, you have a lot you're carrying on your shoulders, because everybody's going to depend on you for information and to set the path, and I think the oldest child or the first child to go to college has a tremendous amount of responsibility on their shoulders. Things have improved. There are orientations now for the student, of course, but the parents are invited. So if you can go to your child's college with them the first day or so, they take the parents off and they tell them, what their experience is going to be like. And they really do more now to get the parents engaged. And I think this is something that we have to keep addressing to the chancellor's office and to the administrators and to the presidents of the colleges, that the parents want to be involved, the students want their involvement. How do we get them more engaged? And anyhow, I don't want to take up too much time, because I'm going to give you
No
some
worries, Nicky, definitely. You're our guest, so please share anything that you feel is vital to this topic. Yeah, but I think that takes us into our next question. Our next, question is, if there are first generation older siblings that have left for college, has that process helped the younger generation? And how does that frame for the parents that they had their first generation, let's say the older siblings go off to college? How has that changed, with the decision making? Okay.
It changes a lot, because, well, in our case, our daughter went to college, and I didn't want her to go, and truly, because since they've always been with me, I was fearful that if she left, something might happen to her. And she says, I'm a little bit dramatic. I was very fearful, but thank God she graduated university. I'm very happy. I'm very proud that she has reached her goals. achieved her dreams. And
Mhm.
even though a lot of people in the family didn't believe in her, they thought that she wasn't going to go to study, that she was going to go to do other things.
Mhm.
Thank God she did it. She made it. She keeps working hard. I'm very proud of them. My other son is in his process as well. And I think that it's going to be a little bit less hard when it's his time, when it's time for the youngest one. And it's going to hurt
Mhm.
because I'm very close to them and they're very close to me. But if it's for their own good and for them to have a good future,
Mhm.
I don't want them to go through what we went through. I come from a very small farm. There wasn't lots of work. We were poor. We were very poor. And I told them that I want the best for them. I want them to give their all and to achieve all the goals that they set up for themselves. I tell them, you're going to make it. Just say that to yourself and you're going to make it. And it is hard for us as parents. You know, your children leaving, you don't know what's going to happen. So there's always that fear. But thank God,
Yeah.
they are doing great. I think that's my opinion so far.
Sí, gracias. Thank you, Belinda. And I think that, definitely, I think we're in a region where there's so much support. And so how are communities providing support in this generation for students to apply for college and universities? It could be, what the support that our communities providing, but it could be, how do the parents see their communities? But then also our professionals here, how do you see that support coming from organizations, colleges? Mhm.
I think that there are lots of good opportunities.
Okay.
I think that it's just a matter of looking for them, getting informed. Because I'm going to tell you the truth. I didn't go to school in Mexico since I lived in a very small farm that was far away from the city. Teachers would go there 1 or twice a month, and that's not enough. And here, thank God, there are many ways in which the children can get support, and it depends on them. If they don't make the most out of these opportunities, what can parents do besides supporting them, listening to them? And they know the language here. They know more than we do. So they search. I think that there are many good opportunities for our children.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I appreciate our parents that are, our panelist parents are sharing this. I think this is a vital, conversation of, within the Latinx community. And I know Nicky's here from the San Francisco State University area, but we're really all within the same communities because we have students that go off to San Jose State. We have students that go off to San Francisco State or maybe even farther. And Denisse here coming from Napa Valley to Sonoma State. And so I think our communities within this region, from what I experienced also as a first generation college student, is that there's so much support. But then I think the message that we're really wanting to put out is how are these communities, how can we allow for this generation to know that support's there without shying away from, not, feeling that there's no access to scholarships or any financial aid support, or maybe allowing for them to, how could they explore the dorm life, right? Living in the dorms at the colleges or even outside of the colleges, away from the parents and not feeling scared that, as Denisse was sharing, sometimes students are the interpreters of their parents for various, modalities. And so how can they really be successful in college, knowing that, they are now on trying to be framing an independent life, right? But at the same time, staying connected to their parents. Mhm.
I think it's really important, Imelda, and to everybody here that we start promoting higher education, which is anything past high school, higher education, college, university, as early as possible, and making academics something that they enjoy learning and sharing and reading, and that's totally doable. I live in San Francisco and I love our San Francisco library system. The former city librarian that read all the libraries in the city was a Mexican-American, Tejano, Luis Herrera. And oh my God, he made sure there was lots of Latino programming, so many programs for children, for adults. There was language acquisition workshops, tech stuff. I mean, that's a great resource for young families to utilize the library and keep up that the strive for high academics. And so that when they're in high school, it's automatic. Oh yeah, I'm starting to prepare for college already. And one really good financial step you can take already in high school is to try to promote AP classes. So do people know what the AP classes are? They're classes you take while you're in high school. They're more advanced. They are tougher classes because you're at the university level. And when you complete the class, you take a test. Now, depending on the score, you're going to get college credit. So you could go into college before you even start with college credits. That translates into tuition, right? So, there's things that you do along the way to keep your kids on track and in the college mode, if that's what you think is best for them. College isn't for everybody, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be in some type of a job that's not going to allow you to have a good quality of life. There's other ways of doing that without college, but I know we're here to promote college, and I know my parents did that for us. That's why I have that sign in the back that says San Francisco State University. My parents went there, my sister, her husband, me, we all went, my cousins, we all went to the CSU system. So I think that's very important to keep that light on all the time about, you're going to go to college.
And just to add to what Nicky said, I think that promoting even just spaces like this more and not really giving up in our community, it's really great. But for me, at least in my experience, it's like we really, and I really believe in focusing with the parents too, because if we educate our parents, if we give them this information, if we provide this resource, for them, it will always trickle down to the students, right? Or to their kids. So to me, it's like, because the students are going to school, right? They're learning, they're going to find out about all this, right? And education and all that. But for the parents, it's actually very hard, right? And so I feel like we should also do a better job with focusing on supporting the parents and educating the parents about this process, because like the family here and my family, like my parents didn't even finish the 3rd grade, so it's like, how can you support your kids when you have no idea about how the school system works, right? Especially in a different country. So I think like also providing spaces and educating the parents about education and how they can support their kids, man, I feel like it would be, so much easier, and it would be easier for the parents to at least even start that conversation with their kids at a very young age, right? So it's giving the parents that support. I think for me, it's very important.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. And yeah, I mean, I think talking, just talking about, first generation, college students. And as Nikki's sharing, it doesn't have to be college. Maybe they choose another profession, but I want to say the focus as well to support our communities is to, to choose, make decisions that are vital, that keep them, away from making, going to decisions that are just, not good for them, or anything like that. But I think that really takes us into our next question is just what support should be available to first generation students to help ease the process of navigating the academic system. And this could be something that they already encounter once they're already at the university or junior college, or maybe their trade program. And this could be a question for any of our panelists, because I know, as Miguel and Blandina has shared, their oldest daughter has been attending Chico State. So this can be, a question for any of our panelists. Mhm.
Well, can I speak on this?
Yes, please.
Because as an advisor, I feel like I'm well versed in what the resources are. And this is what I really wanted to share with everybody, especially the parents, because if you know about these things ahead of time, you're going to be able to suggest and hint to your child, well, isn't there an advising center, or isn't there some medical person on campus that can help you if you don't feel well, and things like that. So we want you to know about them ahead of time, parents, so that, when the time comes, you're going to be also well versed in, what the resources are. So when your child gets to campus, there's lots of advising available. And as an advisor, we have found that the students that go to advising sessions, advising appointments with their individual advisor tend to excel and do better and have support. Even when they're doing well, we want them to see their advisor to stay on track, to get more opportunities because they are doing well, and not to wait till the last minute when, oh no, it's May, the semester ends in another month and I'm flunking this class, what do I do? It's good for them to see the advisors along the way. Those are academic advisors that keep them on track of what they're supposed to take for their major, because the university is very interested in keeping you on track and not having you stay there longer than you need to be. It isn't like years ago when we call them professional students, and you could be in school for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years and never graduate. Okay, that's over. Now you've got to really stick to your plan, and you are allowed, to change majors. That's okay, but we want to keep the student on track. There's also financial aid advisors that help you figure out the system. Like Denisse was saying, she had to learn financial aid and then interpret it, understand it well enough to interpret it to her mom. Financial aid is like a big spider web. So there's specific people in the financial aid office, and I don't know what the community is like up in Napa, but I know in San Francisco, when I was at State, and throughout the state, there's a tremendous amount of students that are dreamers, and this is another huge layer, a huge layer of complicated matter, whether you're a dreamer, are you DACA, I mean, the system is very, very complicated. And there's a woman that went from SF State to an organization called Immigrants Rising, and they have all the answers. Well, they don't have all the answers, but they are the best organization to get answers to these complicated questions about how do I fill out the California Dream Act if I'm a dreamer or an undocumented student, and how do I fill out the California application for financial aid, or it's a national application. There's career counselors. Well, they're supposed to be, but you kind of have to pick and choose who you are communicating with that you feel you have an alliance with that will help you. A lot of times the faculty and the part-time faculty and even the staff as well in the Chicano or Latino studies, they're really there for our kids. And I believe those are the people that are going to go the extra mile and know the ins and outs of the university and the community to help launch your children. So it's important that your children take those courses, you know, because I mean, it's one thing to grow up Mexican American or, you know, whatever your background is, but those classes make a difference in understanding, you know, the history and the politics and the things that are going to affect their lives as they grow older. Another, let's see, most of the schools now have a dream center where you can ask specific questions for undocumented students. There's peer support, so they can get tutoring from other students. There's specific programs such as the one called Puente that I know Imelda was a part of in the community college that still exists from the 80s, and that supports Latino students. There's at San Francisco State a program called Metro for freshmen and sophomores that come in with, you know, what they consider some barriers. Maybe their grades weren't as high as others. Maybe there's some financial, you know, support that they need. So these are all programs that need to be looked into at your specific school. And I also want to mention something that's very important, and it is a sensitive topic. But when I started at State around 2000, I didn't see many students with mental health issues. But as time went on, it is a prevalent issue with young people today, that there is depression, there is anxiety, there's PTSD. And these are things I think that Latino families kind of sometimes brush under the rug and don't really bring out in the open, or maybe the student is embarrassed to bring it out. But at each university and community college, there are centers to help students, our children, with these specific areas of concern. Unfortunately, the name of the office is called Psychological Services. So if I was a student that was feeling depressed, I don't know if I'd want to go to an office with that name, but just so you know, they have personal counselors there that will talk to your child and figure out, is this a transitional problem just because, you know, they've moved away from home, they're fearful, they're missing their family, or is this something more serious? And that's very, very important to get checked out, especially at that vulnerable age when they're 18 to about 22. Two more things I want to mention that are really strong areas or strong places where just students get support. And there's sororities and fraternities that are specific for Latino students. And one of them, got to be the advisor for this group. Sigma Pi Alpha is a sorority of Latina students. And I have followed these women like for many years now, and in their 30s and their 40s, they are still a tight network of women that support each other, and they keep themselves on track academically. They keep themselves on track when it comes to things that they shouldn't be doing. You know, they watch out for each other. The group for the men, it's not a fraternity, but it's another very strong group called Hermanos Unidos, and they do service projects. They have tutoring for each other. They help high school boys get into college, high school boys and girls. They're an amazing group, and both of these groups came out of UC Berkeley in, I think, 89 and 96. So as an advisor, I really hope that the parents will make sure that their students are going to their advising appointments and making sure that, you know, that they're having success in their classes. And if they're not, that they catch this problem early and get the support they need to continue and not experience anything like being on academic probation, because that could affect their financial aid. And just, you know, be in line with that so that you can be there when they need it. And they come home and they say, Mom or Dad, I flunked the class, you know. Well, you would have known about it already because you've been talking to them, and you can tell them, see your advisor, talk to your professor, figure, you know, let's help you figure this out. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nicky. Anyone else? Denisse, would you like to share a little bit about your experience?
with Sonoma State, I was part of their EOP program, which that was very helpful. Um, I struggled a lot. I never really spoke to anybody about it, but like I mean, being first generation, out of my house, even though I was excited, right? To make my own choices and to, you know, be a little bit more free. There was there was a ton of fear. There was a ton of fear, and there was a lot of hesitation. The counselors I had were really great, but I think like for me at that time, what would have really helped me is for somebody that looked like me, to like an academic counselor that, you know, looked like me, that was Latino, that really understood like how difficult it is for us to really transition from, pretty much for me was like one world to a completely other. I mean, you know, and I know that even in high schools now, like there's a lot more like Latino counselors, which is so awesome. But I also wish that maybe mental health was talked about a little bit more. When I was still in college, it wasn't very spoken about, but I wish, you know, I wish I would have had that person that I was like, man, or even go to that place. I mean, it existed, but I'm like, oh, like Nikki, you said, just even the name of the building was like, I'm like, no, and you know, and there's already a lot of stigma in mental health in our community. So I just, you know, I think back, I'm like, man, if I could do everything all over again, but I already know so much, right? And thankfully, you know, I can really pass this knowledge down to literally my nieces and nephews that are in college right now, some of them. And you know, I can talk to them about like, it's okay to feel like you're living two worlds, right? And if that is how you feel, like, you know, this are your resources. So sometimes hearing it from someone that you love and that you care could really mean a lot.
I was
Yeah,
talking, oh,
go ahead. No, please, go ahead, Nikki. No,
I was
go.
talking to one of my former students last night about her experience, because she lives in Santa Maria, and her experience there was, you know, working the fields, and her family operated a strawberry operation there. So when she came to college, fortunately, her older siblings had already gone to college, but she was telling me, Nikki, she goes, you know, the best thing that happened with my parents when I came to San Francisco State, which is about 4 hours from Santa Maria, is that my parents came up with me, and they saw where I was going to live. They saw the dorms. They met some of my new roommate, things like that. So when they got to actually be there in the space, you know, they could be, when they went back home, they could visualize where her daughter Donna was, and it made that transition a little bit easier. She also said that her mother taught her a few things to cook, so she felt a little bit more, Donna felt a little bit more self-sufficient. Her mother gave her some recipes, so that helped. And you know, back in the day, we didn't have cell phones, right? So this generation is very lucky to have the technology that exists to stay in touch with your family. And we had a funny thing happen in my office. I was running a resource center, and there were some non-Latina girls talking and chatting, and they were saying, oh yeah, I talked to my mom maybe like once or twice a week. And me and the Latina girls in the office looked at each other like, what? Once or twice a week? You know, because the girls I knew, they were calling their mothers, you know, three or four times a day. And that's like the norm, and that's fine. And to stay connected and send pictures and share that is you're going to feel connected to your children, even though they're far away, thanks to the cell phones. And you can schedule times to talk to your student, you know, and say every night at 7, or you know, the weekends at, you know, pick times that you're going to be able to connect and really, reach out to each other and stay informed of what they're doing, and they'll stay informed of what's happening with the family. And sometimes it is traumatic. I had a student that won one of our scholarships, and he was at UC Merced, and his father was here in San Francisco, and his father was suffering from cancer, and that just tore this boy apart, and he had younger sibling, little ones. So it tore him apart to be away from the family, but he did it because he knew his dad wanted him to complete his engineering degree, and he did. Now he's back home and has a nice job.
All right, thank you, Nicky and Denise. Miguel and Blandina, any thoughts? Anything that you would like to share?
Well, truly, I was thinking how we also went to the university with her, and also to meet her peers or her roommates that she would cohabit with. And yes, I do think that these are things that at a certain moment help a lot and provide more confidence, and to us as well, because yes, in the beginning
Mhm.
one doesn't even have an idea of what is going on. You know they're going to study, but you don't know where or what that place is like, what the people there are like. And once we know this and the other people, there's a bit more trust, and there's a sort of assurance that I know where to come if I need to, or if I need to talk, or if I want to visit, or anything. And it's much better for them and for us too. I think that it's very good, but sometimes we don't think about it like that. We don't assimilate it that way, or that it helps so much. It's a lot of things that help the students that we sometimes don't realize that during the process. It's a lot of things. The truth is that we don't realize it until it has already passed. Once you learn about all of that, then you already know it, and you're more trusting, and it's good things that at the start were very difficult. Well, for me, it was very difficult to drop my daughter off at college when we did. I felt that something had been removed from my heart, but with the passing of time, one begins to accept that they need to grow and study. And I would send her a message in the morning, the afternoon, good morning, good night. When she felt stressed, we would talk, and I think there are really good opportunities for them in programs such as Sonoma State, Upper Bound. She graduated from there, and that's when she decided to go to college. And I would say I would suggest the community college, but she wanted to go to university. And the truth is, I was a bit upset because I didn't want her to go so far. I spent days where I couldn't look at her, but once she graduated, it was such a huge pride for me that I don't know how to even express how proud I was when I saw her graduating from the university. it was something very beautiful, and I can tell all the mothers that they shouldn't be afraid because it will be difficult at the start, but you start to learn and get a hang of it and realize that it's for the best for their future. And I would say to not be afraid when the time comes for my youngest to leave, maybe I'll be more prepared.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you so much, Melinda and Miguel. And then just to kind of wrap up or the conversation, we want to leave some time for our audience if they have any questions. But for you as parents, if you could give any advice as parents, going through this right now, what would it be if to share to our community?
And advice for parents would be to not fear. To not fear. Your children will be okay. And there are lots of help. There's lots of help in the university. There's counseling, and the university provides. So they shouldn't feel fear. At the beginning, it is hard. It is really hard, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful to know that you have that your child is attending the university. It's a very exciting thing.
Go ahead, Nikki. Yeah.
Again, I want to commend the families for their strength and the sacrifice they make in sending their children off. Because I have attended many Latino graduations, and even right now, hearing you speak, Miguel and Blandina, it brings tears to my eyes. What you say, because I picture all the graduations I've been to and the speeches that the kids give and thanks and showing their gratefulness to their parents, and the parents responding that their child has had this great success. And it's not just a sacrifice for the family. It's something you're doing for the community, because you're changing society. When we're getting our kids college educated, and earning, great salaries, they're going to have influence on society by being in the positions that we need them. Like Denisse was saying, we need to see more faces, and everywhere we go to see Latino faces and representation. And when they can, get a good job and make a good salary, they have influence there by contributing to political campaigns to get the right people elected that influence our communities, and sit on boards and donate to scholarships. And I think most important is that the children, once they graduate and find themselves in some, hopefully, decent paying careers, they're going to be there when we age and we want to retire and we're tired and we need a little bit of help. The kids are going to be able to say, Mom and Dad, let me help you now. I'm here. And this is the way I'm thanking you for all that you sacrificed for us.
Thank you, Nikki. Denisse, any last thoughts to wrap up our conversation?
I think for from the student perspective, I think is to really let them know and validate their feelings, like really listen and pay attention to what you're feeling, and definitely ask questions, ask around, and with whoever it is that you feel comfortable, right? If that's a friend within the school or a teacher, a professor, just ask questions. I think, like, for me, I'd never asked a lot of questions because I was always really afraid. I don't know. I just, I thought like I needed to know it all and keep it all together by myself. So just know that it's hard. It's a very hard transition, and to ask questions. And for the parents, it's like, you know, keep getting yourselves informed. I think that the more informed, the more education you get around information on how to support your kids, the more valuable the kids are going to be. It's going to be for the kids or for the students. So
All right, thank you so much, Denise. So we're going to open our conversation for our audience. If there's any questions before we move on to our resource fair, we'll just open it up to conversation, or I'm sorry, questions for a few minutes. If there's any questions, please feel free to share anything you would like or ask the panelists any questions.
Imelda, I put some things in the chat that might be helpful.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. Yeah, and yeah, that definitely, if there's no questions, that's okay. We can definitely, everyone's welcome to please join us for our resource fair right after our panelists.